Hi there, and welcome to my 22nd episode of Career Stories Live. So today I am joined by Sonal Bahl, who is a global career coach, podcaster, and YouTuber who's based in Brussels. So welcome, Sonal. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me, Sarah. It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, really good. And I've seen we've got a comment already. So this is Jeff. So Jeff says, Sonal is a legend, Sarah. Looking forward to learning more about her journey here. Namaste. Thank you, Jeff, as always. It's always great to see you. The first comment every week.
And we were just talking about you, Jeff, in the green room behind the scenes, and we feel the same way about you. So yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
absolutely. So as Jeff has already done, please do comment to let us know that you're here, where you're joining from, and feel free to ask any questions or share your experience in the comments. If you're watching later on the replay, then also leave some comments and we'll go back and look at those later. So thank you. So just a quick intro, the basis for these lives that I'm doing. I've just always been really interested in people's careers, what they do, why they do it. I really like learning about different roles and career paths, and that's what gave me the idea. So it's really to inspire thought of people about what they could do and to get advice really from different sources of information. So all my guests so far have given some really lovely career tips. So that's really great. I can see we've got one more comment. So John saying hi, saying how is Sarah? So thank you, John. So John was my guest on week 2, so that's good. And Kevin is saying good day as well. So thank you everyone for joining. Great to see you. Okay, so let's get started. So now, can you give me a brief intro into what you do, into you and what you're doing right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a former HR professional, HR director, and I feel like I like starting with this because this was a big part of my life, a big part of my world, a big part of my career up until a few years ago. So I started out in human resources in India and in South America, and I worked at big conglomerate, houses like GE Capital and Price Waterhouse, and very different consulting versus in-house, different industries, different locations. So India, which is home, I speak English with everyone. Well, thanks to the British colonization, everyone speaks English. It's a very comfortable first language for many people. And then moving to South America, where nobody spoke a word of this language and had to
Yeah.
learn it from scratch. And then fate brought me to South America and then brought me to Europe.
Okay.
I came to Europe to study and then graduated and had a job right out of campus to come to Brussels. And in Brussels, I've been in different industries from mining and chemicals to food ingredients to telecom, and did all this till a few years ago when I reached this pivot.
Hmm.
And I think this fork, everyone reaches it at some point or
Yeah.
another. The most common time that a lot of us reach it is around like early 40s, where something is going on, and we start questioning, is this it? And that's exactly what happened with me. And I spent a year figuring things out and being very lost in the wild. And I'm very open about this because people who look like they have their ish together, they have taken a long messy road to get there.
Yeah.
And I started in this lost journey. I decided, I've learned a lot along this way, and I don't know what my next step is. But in the meantime, all this I've learned, I don't want it to go to waste. So let me put all this in easy to digest videos. Oh, let me put this on YouTube. This is back in 2018. And I
Okay.
thought it was too late to start a YouTube channel. Everyone around me was telling me it was too late. Can you imagine, Sarah? People say that till today.
Oh well, I mean,
I
I'm
put out
only
this
just
video and nothing really happened with it. It was all about how to have a fantastic resume. And I was so scared. I was shivering when I pressed publish. I didn't even have the guts to be on camera. I was behind and I was doing this narration voice. And I did this with a couple of videos, and no one was watching except very encouraging family and friends.
Mm,
That's really nice. But they're not necessarily the target audience for those
yeah.
videos. And I just
Yeah.
kind of gave up on it and took the same content. And I said, let me see what happens. And if I take this to LinkedIn and upload it as native LinkedIn content. Let's see what happens. And then out of the blue, someone reached out from a completely different part of the world and said, hey, I saw this video of yours, or I saw this article of yours on LinkedIn. I'd like to see if we can work together. And I hadn't at that point even set up like a company because I was just
Mm,
tinkering. One led to two, led to three, and the rest is history.
Wow, it's amazing, isn't it? And I think it leads me to an interesting point, actually, because quite a lot of people recently have said to me, "Why are you connected to so many other career coaches? Are you not, you're just showing people your competition?" But I think it's not like that on LinkedIn, is it? You connecting to people because they're interesting people, and maybe you refer business to them, and everyone's got different specialties. So it's great.
That's a very mature outlook. I didn't start with this outlook, and I am very noble of you, Sarah. When I started out, I saw everyone ahead of me, everyone 50 steps ahead of me, and I felt behind and I
Right.
felt jealous. I'm going to say the
Mm.
J word. I was jealous
Yeah.
and I was like, what have they got that I don't? And some people say, it can give you fuel. It didn't give me fuel, it slowed me down a lot.
Right. Okay.
And then it hit me, and then I learned about growth mindset, abundance mindset,
Yeah.
and then I started a podcast in 2020. And every single one of the people that I was afraid of or jealous of has either been on the podcast or
Mm.
been on my LinkedIn live, and they're absolutely lovely.
Mm.
And I back in 2020, when I learned more about this, I threw the word competition out the window. And even with
Yeah.
my clients, I'm like, I don't think of your other candidates who want the same job. I don't think of them as competition. You're in your own league. They're in
Yeah.
their own league. Just swim in your lane and trust the process.
Yeah, absolutely. So Kevin's saying here, go YouTube, and he's put a link to your channel up. So
That's
thanks,
really
Kevin.
sweet, Kevin.
Very
And Kevin has a quick shout out. Kevin is not only amazing and who's been on my LinkedIn live, like I don't know how many times already, 5 times,
Yeah,
but he's got all these amazing tips, especially on LinkedIn, and he shares them for free. And they're on his YouTube channel, which is worth subscribing, because I can bet you
definitely.
there's LinkedIn employees out there who don't know this platform as well as this dude does.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I know his latest update was saying there's been 75 new features so far on LinkedIn, and he's got them all listed, and they're so helpful. It's
Yes.
amazing.
Yes.
Okay. I always put a link up to my channel now. I've got 20 subscribers, so it's very early for me.
We start there. We all start there.
Exactly. Okay. So, early careers. I've been talking to people about their early careers, actually. So things like when you were at school, when you were at college, all of that kind of stuff. So did you have a job, like an early career when you were at school or anything?
I love this question because I literally ask this question to every single podcast guest, and I
Really?
have to say this feels weird to be on the
Yeah.
other side.
Yes, I'm sure.
Um, so in India, you have the two major years are year 10 and year 12. We call them
Okay.
the 10th grade and the 12th grade, and then you go to college.
Okay.
When I was in the 12th, so I'm 17, right? I knew, Sarah, I wanted to be in HR. Don't ask me
Okay.
how and why. I just knew it.
Yeah.
I studied commerce in school, and I studied all these subjects. And I literally, a 17-year-old mind, the process of elimination is very underrated. So it was like,
Mhm.
okay, there were three fields of management. I still remember those thin, outdated books.
Mm.
There was finance, there was marketing, and there was personnel management. They didn't even call
I
it
know.
HR
Yes.
back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I finance and marketing didn't speak to me as much. HR did, and I was like, I could staffing, planning, controlling. What does this mean? It was all such theory, and I was like, I think this is what I want to do, and I think I would be good at it. So
Mm.
when the time came to go to college, I studied sociology. I wanted to choose
Okay.
something called a behavioral science. Didn't know what the heck it was, but I was
Yeah.
like, I think that's the direction, and I'm going to trust my guide, and that's what I did.
Excellent. No, that's really good. Yeah, good intro, and it's good to know at that age, isn't it, what it was you want to do. Okay, so Kevin's saying we both rock. Thank you, Kevin. And LinkedIn helps you to find your tribe. So definitely, that's really true. So thank you for that. Okay, so we just kind of touched on that really. So what made you decide on HR and recruitment for your career? So yeah, we've covered that. So that's great. And you have worked all around the world. So what kind of things have you learned from that experience?
I think the most profound thing that I've learned, which will not be a surprise to you, Sarah, or to anyone, is that we are more alike than different.
Mm,
And I mean, we're talking completely different culture, languages, everything, and even like within India, right? Because India is so huge, and I could be, working in Delhi and never having been to Goa or, Bangalore or whatever. And those are completely different cultures, languages, ways of dressing, food, all of that stuff.
yeah.
So I'm just putting that to the side because we sometimes take our own country for granted when wherever we
Mm,
are living. It's
yeah.
you know
Yeah.
subcultures within our own where we live, but also in the different countries. At the end of the day, most people have the same fear. They're
Mm,
managing fears. Most people are looking at ways to maximize prestige, get a better job, get better educated, look for a good car, maximize pleasure. Who's this
mm.
person? I think this is the right person for me. I want to settle down. They maximize, jokes. There's like, a stupid example, but one way to bond with someone. I remember when I was learning Spanish from scratch, and I was so shaky. But the good thing was nobody understood English, so it forces you, and
Mm.
your learning curve goes up really like exponentially.
Yeah.
So one of the early words I remember learning, thanks to a very humorous Spanish teacher, was the word for mother-in-law,
Okay.
suegra. And mother-in-law jokes. I mean, I have to say this though, I have the loveliest mother-in-law, but just joking about that, it kind of brought us together, whether it's
Yeah.
weather, whether it's taxes, whether it's mother-in-law. There's so much universal stuff that brings us more together than divides us. That's what I learned.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. Okay. So how did you actually start your career? So what was your first kind of proper job, if you like?
I never talk about my first proper job ever. So you are
Okay.
like the first person to hear about it. And the
Okay.
reason I never talk about it is because it was too short to count.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
was so embarrassed in the beginning. I never talked about it when I was interviewing with the next company, because I look at the next company as. So
Yeah.
my first job was like 2 months, and it was a dot com. So this is the year 2000. And this is a boom period of dot coms. And this was a
Okay.
jobs classified, and I was selling ads. I was
Okay.
selling ads to companies who were recruiting, desperately looking for good people, and I was telling them to find ways to advertise with us. It was in simple classifieds, or give us more money and we'll put it in like a featured job section, all of
Yeah.
that. So I would do quite a bit of door to door in New Delhi in the heat.
Mhm.
And I quickly realized I was quite good at it, actually. I have to say, I did enjoy the sales part, but I didn't enjoy the process of getting there. And I
Okay.
liked being in the office in the air conditioned environment.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy being out there. And
Yeah.
so one of the clients I was selling to, they kind of liked me and they said, "Hey, would you like to work with us?" And I said, "Yes." "Is it in the office?" They said, "Yeah." I said, "What's the job?" And they were like, "Recruiting." And the money was the same. And I was like, yeah, I tried a very feeble attempt at salary negotiation, which is a big part of what I talk about today.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
was like, "Okay, we'll give you," like, it was literally like 1% more. And I was like,
Yeah.
"Done. I'll
Yeah.
go." So I
Anything's
quit.
better.
I
Yeah.
quit, and this was a software design company, and I was recruiting. They were going through massive growth. They
Mm.
had lovely, venture funding from UBS, United Bank of Switzerland, and that lasted 6 months. I
Mhm.
mean, the dot com bubble burst, as we all know, and
Yeah.
I was laid off on the phone
Oh,
on a
no.
weeknight,
Yeah.
and I cried. My 22-year-old self was like,
Mm.
"This is the end of the world."
Mm.
A month later, I was working at GE. I'd applied, I'd got in, so that changed my life. But these first two shaky,
Yeah.
experiences, they partly shape who I am.
They do, don't they? And that's the thing, you learn so much from them, and I'm sure even the kind of the 2-month role going around selling people, that must have been hard at that age, I would imagine. And yeah, you learn a lot about people as well, don't you?
You learn also, exactly, and you also learn how not to treat people. Because I have been
Yes.
laid off 3 times, and I talk about this very openly on social media,
Mhm.
and it taught me so much on how not to treat people.
Yeah.
And there is
Yeah.
an bad news is always bad, and most of the time, HR is not the decision maker when it comes to laying people off. There is a
Yes.
nice way, a humane way of doing things, and there is a whole way of doing things,
Yeah,
and I have seen
absolutely.
both.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. I mean, it's only happened to me once, but I've kind of only
Once is
once.
plenty.
Yeah, but the guy who told me, he started that day, so he didn't even know me, and that was the thing that I found very, I mean, he was very nice, but imagine that your first day in the office and you have to tell all these people they've been made redundant. It's crazy,
Yeah, yeah.
crazy. Okay, that's interesting. Oh, really interesting then. So you kind of then established your career in HR from there, from
Mm. Yeah,
GE.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's good. And what did you like about HR? So was it all you imagined it to be?
Oh yeah, and more and
Yeah.
more. Because when you read about these things, you completely
Mm.
ignore that people are unpredictable,
Mm.
and everything that happens in the office, it's very difficult to plan ahead for things like that.
Yeah.
You're talking about that guy who had to fire you
Mm.
on like his first day. I remember my first day or my first 2 days at GE. I had to tell someone, and she was also this young woman,
Mm.
probably younger. I was 22, 23. She must have been 21 or something like that. And she was in, this was the back end side of GE Capital. So, GE appliances, GE aircraft engines, all their back end processes were outsourced to India because it just made a lot of economic sense. And this
Yeah.
resulted in great jobs as well for the
Yeah.
Indian
Yeah.
population back then. I She was working at GE Appliances. I still remember, and there was a 6 week training period to bring everyone up to snuff. She didn't clear the training, and the trainer very conveniently did not give her this news. So she
Mm.
was told go to HR. Now I was there at 8 in the morning. I was the only, I was young as well, eager to
Yeah.
please. There was no one else in that department but me. She came to me. She didn't know why she came to me, and I was talking to her, and within like the same minute, I didn't have a laptop back then. I had this giant desktop with a
Yes.
big backside. Do you remember those?
Yes,
So
absolutely. Yeah.
it beeped that I had, ting, I had received an email. So I just kind of tried to, just see quickly what the email is, and I'm listening to her, and I was like, then I got the information, and I learned the word redeployment.
Right. Okay.
I had to
Yeah.
redeploy her and find her something else. So when
Right.
I found out, and I had to give her this news as diplomatically and
Yeah.
yet as empathetically as possible, she cried and cried in my arms, and I fell completely, like I didn't know how. I was at the same time I had to show a little bit of distance as well. So these
Yeah.
are not things you learn about in HR. So every day is different. Like you
Yeah.
do not know what's coming. It is
Yeah.
not for the faint of heart. HR is never the most popular function. In fact, it's very hated as a function.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
got a reputation.
Yeah.
But I to be fair, in every function, in every department, you'll have good people. You'll have some good eggs. You'll have some
Mm.
bad apples. John Espirian calls them douche canoes.
Yes.
I think we have our share of them in HR. So
Yes.
yeah, I mean, I could go on, but these are like initial memories that come to
Yeah,
mind.
yeah, yeah, and that's and yeah, treating people like that, and like learning from the bad experiences you have and pivoting them around to be able to help others, I think is really good. I remember one time actually when I was self-employed and I'd been allocated a client through a company that I work for, and it just wasn't a great match. And sometimes that happens when you're coaching someone, doesn't it? And the administrator had to phone me to tell me, and I could tell that she was so nervous. And I said, "Look, it's fine. It's a matching thing. That the person we didn't get on absolutely fine." And she was really relieved because she was, she thought I was going to break down into tears or something. And I think being able to have that confidence to say, not everyone is going to be your ideal client. But again, that comes with practice, doesn't it? And
It
experience.
does. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, so we always end up talking about values on this show as well. So do you think your personal values have an impact on the type of organization you'll work for, or the role you'll take on, or the clients that you'll work with even?
Oh yeah, 100%. And I'm so happy to say that yes, 100%, because
Mhm.
I teach this to my clients as well. I'm sure you do as well, Sarah. It would be one thing to have values, and it would be another thing to practice them. And then it would
Mm.
be something else to tell your clients, like, do what I did, don't do what I do.
Yeah.
So that alignment is very important. Hmm. So there's when you're like, when I was making my website, like it forced me to think about this because I wanted to write
Mm.
about this in my about section. And I was like, I'm not used to talking about myself, so this is
Yeah.
extremely uncomfortable. But I remember I wrote two things, coming from all the good and the bad experiences I've had. The first thing I wrote was relationships over revenue.
Okay.
And yeah, some clients are great, you work very well together, some are not for you.
Mm.
But good and bad, whatever happened, I always try to make sure that, you know, even like salary negotiation, do
Yeah.
not kill the relationship because there is a chance at getting an upside. So there's different ways I have practiced this throughout my career.
Yeah.
And the second is compassion over compliance. I kind of
Okay.
like these words because they're
Mhm.
alliterations. I'm a
Yeah,
big, like,
yeah.
I'm partial to alliterations. I've worked in so many companies which became bureaucratic with time, and it was all about do it, then do this, then do this. And I remember I had to lay someone off who, according to the company, wasn't working out, and I felt very responsible because I had actually hired him,
Right.
at the at the early part of at my time at the company there. So I was very proud of, having seeing him and seeing him flourish. And it turns out others didn't feel the same way, so I had to give him this news, and it was hard for him. uh,
Mm.
and then I think I made a promise to him which I shouldn't have made towards the end in the exit process. And I realized later that it wasn't right. And I was told by people at the senior level, how could you do that? I was like, okay, I get it. It's a mistake, but what's done is done. The thing I had promised him came from my values.
Right, okay.
Company didn't agree with those values. I still
Right,
remember
okay.
when this happened. I remember the
Yeah.
exact date. And then I knew my days in this company are numbered.
Mm.
It's not going to work out. And it broke my heart because I had
Yeah,
given my blood, sweat, and tears in that company. But I thought, there's no point.
yeah,
And yeah, I did spend some time lost. And yeah,
yeah.
it was hard. And yes, would I recommend quitting a job if you don't have a job in hand? I wouldn't. But sometimes
Mm.
you also have to, on one hand, you have to be practical.
Yeah.
Do you have some cushion? Is there some savings you can, land on? Is there a spouse who can support you?
Mm.
On the other hand, what is the price of your mental and physical health? Because if
Exactly.
that's
Yeah,
deteriorating,
yeah,
it's on you.
yeah,
Don't blame others. Don't have the victim mindset. It's very negative and it's very addictive.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
was like, I recognize this as thankfully because I was working in human resources. I was also facilitating workshops on something called burnout. And I'm talking clinical definition of burnout,
yeah,
not the way colloquially we talk about it today.
yeah,
I started recognizing that I was approaching it. And I
yeah,
thought, okay, I see the signs in front of me. And before I get into full-fledged and get a diagnosis, I'm not like, I have to put a stop to it. So yeah,
yeah,
that's what I did. And yes, it cost me in the short term and the medium term
yeah,
heavily.
yeah,
But life is long,
yeah.
and you gotta take a few bets. But as long as you bet on yourself
Mm.
and your values, you stand by them, and your values stand by you,
Yeah,
I don't think you'll regret it.
yeah, agree, definitely. And I think it's the same when you're going into a new role, isn't it? I think gut instinct, I think, is quite important when you're about to accept a new role. And looking at those values again. I was talking to someone just yesterday actually, and the new employer was insisting that it's a 9 to 5 role, which meant that she couldn't take her child to school. And that's really important to her. I'm like, if they're saying that before you've even started, I think it's unlikely they're going to be a good match for you.
Yeah, it either means people in the office don't have kids,
Yes.
or people in the office have people taking care of their kids,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
which means that part has been outsourced, and which means if you're not okay with that, then it's
Yeah.
either speak up or find something else. Yeah,
Yeah, agree.
that's awful.
It
Yeah.
is. Yeah. Okay, I can see a comment from John Esperian, as we just mentioned him. So lovely to see Sonal on the show. She's always so approachable, despite having a mega following, especially on YouTube. So absolutely, that's really true.
Get in line, John, for my autograph. Oh my gosh. That that
Excellent.
that doesn't change anything. I don't know who said it would.
So speaking of YouTube, one of your videos has had over 2 million hits, hasn't it? That's amazing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
was that
There's
a
a story behind that.
self-motivation?
We can talk
Is
about
it?
it another time. There's a story behind that, and it was
Okay.
like totally unexpected.
Wow, that's amazing. So good. Okay, so career highs. What would you say have been your career highs so far?
Um, I would say the first would be leaving the comfort of home, as well as a brand new promotion I had just received in January 2005. I received
Okay.
a brand new promotion. I became team leader. I was 26 and I was leading a team of 10 recruiters. So that was a very big deal. Left all of that, um, followed a brand new husband to
Mhm.
South America, and had to do everything from scratch. Like I said, learning the language, getting a
Yeah.
job, all of that. So it was very challenging, but I'm so glad I did it. So that would be the first high.
Yeah.
And the second would be not getting accepted into an amazing top business school, but also graduating. Both
Yeah.
were a big deal because I graduated. I mean, I the whole process of the MBA I did with a newborn who I was still nursing. He's now 15 and he's, you know, way taller than me.
Yeah.
But back then, 2008. So, but I was crazy about this idea that I want to do an MBA, and I thought that I don't want to do an executive MBA. I want to do an MBA.
Right.
But how are you going to do it? People don't go there with babies. Well, actually, a few did, but very few. I could count them on one hand. Yes,
Yeah.
it was hard. If I had to do it all over again, would I do it this way? No, I wouldn't. But it had to be done. I did it,
Mm.
and graduated with 5 offers upon graduation, which was a
Yeah.
crazy thing at that time when it was a global financial crisis
Mm.
of 2009. And I struggled. I have to say this because people think it's like, oh, wow, what a lovely story. I struggled
Mm.
academically. I struggled a lot. I came from this
Mm.
human resources sociology background. And here we are doing financial accounting, macroeconomics, bonds. I don't understand anything. I didn't understand anything. I was on my own and I had
Mm.
to figure this out. So,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, lots of heartache in there.
Yeah.
But I think those are the two
You
that come to
deserve.
mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Amazing. So would you recommend other people to do that, or and how much time commitment does it take? I guess
I
it's.
I I personally thought that the MBA opened doors for me that
Yeah.
would not have been opened otherwise. But
Yeah.
when I said earlier I wouldn't recommend it, if you have a newborn,
Yeah.
you can do it. Of course you can do it. I mean, never hear me
Yeah.
say no. It's
Yeah.
just a question of the I saw my friends, I saw those who were unattached, who had no kids. I mean,
Mm.
come on, like the experience they had. We were in the south side of Paris.
Yeah.
Every weekend there was a party in a different chateau,
Mm.
sipping
Wow.
wine, going away on these ski trips. I didn't do any of this stuff. I mean,
Right.
I think I must have gone to 2 parties in 1 year,
Yeah.
and figuring out all the babysitting arrangements in the back end. So yeah, if I had to do it all over again, I would have probably been, I would probably choose to be like single and without kids. But this is the way it happened with me, and
Yeah.
I'm glad it was. I was especially glad when it was over.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure. Excellent. Okay. So, what advice would you give to someone who's looking to build a global career like you have?
Ah, yeah. I would say never take it. This is going to sound really funny. Don't ask anyone for advice. This sounds really funny. Don't ask anyone for advice.
Okay.
And the reason I say that
Yeah.
is because everyone is coming from a unique point of view, and people are giving you advice after they have reached the summit.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, and they have a little bit more rosy outlook
Mhm.
towards things. I'm a big believer in following the inner guide and listening to that quiet voice, not the
Oh,
noisy
okay.
voice with the
Yeah.
ego, which is coming from a place of scarcity and like, no, 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 just accept the job because there's so few jobs out there. Oh, you want to go abroad? There are no opportunities. Nobody will take you because of visa problem. That's coming from a place of ego. So if you need help to
Mhm.
quieten down the ego voice and the loud voice and listening to the silent intuitive voice, if you need help, it might be worth finding, working this out with a coach, he or she who can help you to figure this out. So I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah.
But of course, by all means, talk to people who are a couple of steps ahead of you, who are doing what you would like to do.
Yeah.
For sure. But what I mean is, sometimes we idolize people who have
Yeah.
already gone there, but
Yeah.
we don't know the rocky road they had to be on to get there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most people don't talk about the rocky road because they don't want to feel vulnerable all over again. Some have PTSD from those days,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they are only showing their beautiful, shiny, curated social media.
Yeah.
Which is why when I hear all these famous people and they're giving their advice, I mean, have you noticed, Sarah? It can come across as very shallow,
Yeah. Yeah.
very superficial, and
Yeah.
nothing that you haven't heard before. But you're like, but she said it, so follow your passion. Then maybe that's what I should do. No, please, no, please don't follow your passion. Don't listen to that just because someone said that. You've
Yeah.
got bills to pay. That person has made 100 million.
Yeah.
So I think advice is cheap.
Yeah.
You
No,
know,
that's really
does
good
that make
point.
sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. And actually, I think even more so, is I've just finished listening to a book called Chatter by Ethan Cross. Have you heard of that?
No.
But in there, he talks about your inner voice is your best critic. Sorry, your best coach and your worst critic. And I think
Yes.
that really resonates with what you just said. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And talking about trusting your own instinct. So I think
Yeah.
that's really good advice.
Yeah, and I'm gonna after our recording, I'm gonna tag someone in the comments. Her name is Selena Rizvani. She has just written a book called Quick Confidence, and I had her on my podcast yesterday. So we recorded it yesterday. It'll be live
Yeah,
in a few days,
yeah.
and she talked about the critic and the coach. So
Right.
the
Okay.
two C's, and
Yeah.
she talked about her experience in which one she listened to and how badly it hurt her when she listened to the critic because it
Yeah.
was louder compared to the coach, and
Yeah.
how the negative self-talk uh, took her back
Yeah.
and made her doubt herself. So it's very relevant to what we're talking about. So I just want
Yeah.
to give her a quick
Yeah,
shout out.
no, that's perfect. Thank you. Brilliant. Okay, we're pretty much out of time actually. So I've just seen John saying, "Don't accept criticism from someone you'd never approach for advice." And thank you, John. Very good. Okay, so what's the best way for people to get in touch with you, Sonal? I'm
Oh
guessing
yes, of
LinkedIn
course. I mean,
thing. So
any fan of Sarah is a friend of mine. So LinkedIn would be the easiest if you want to connect on LinkedIn. I mean, you're super duper welcome to follow, but I'm very open to connections. And when I say connections, I mean, quality connections where it's not a blind connection request.
yeah,
But if you go to the three dots on the right hand side and you personalize it,
yeah,
and you say that you saw me on Sarah's LinkedIn live, I'll be super happy to connect and chat, and if there's anything I can help with, I've got tons of free stuff when it comes to
brilliant.
careers that might be helpful. You never know. But
Yeah,
in the
I'm
meantime,
sure it
you've
will be.
already got the lovely Sarah with all her career tips. And Sarah, you're amazing. You've been doing this for a while.
Thank you. Yeah, so yeah, you're number 22.
No, no, no. Also, your career coaching
Oh yeah,
back.
oh yeah, yeah. 20 years. Yeah. Yeah, it's been a long time. Yeah. I'm that old.
Wise.
So yeah, so thank you so much to Sonal for joining me today, and thank you to everyone that's been watching. It's been really, really interesting learning a bit more about you. So thank you.
My
Um,
pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And this afternoon, I've got a second session. So I'm going to be joined this afternoon at 4 o'clock by Dan Roth. So that's because he's in San Francisco and this is way too
Yes.
early for him. So
Yes.
looking forward to him. And then next week, I've got Rebecca Stobbs coming on. So she's the Alumni Relations Manager at Newcastle University Business School. So really looking forward to talking to her about what it's like to have a career in academia and kind of advice she's got for students as well. So that's going to be a really good one, I'm sure. So thanks again, Sonal, and I will see you all next time. Thank you.